give your attendance and you will be heard. God save the King.
Acting Chief Judge, I have the honour to announce I have been appointed a judge of this court. I present my commission.
Thank you, Judge Johnson. Just take a seat. Mr Deputy Registrar, would you please read out the commission?
Whereas by the District Court Act 1973 is enacted that the Governor may, by commission under the public seal of the state, appoint any qualified person as a judge of the District Court of New South Wales. Now I, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, AC Casey, the Governor aforesaid, in pursuance of the power and authority vested in me in that behalf, do, with the advice of the Executive Council of New South Wales, hereby appoint you, the said Paul Arthur Johnson, being a person qualified to be so appointed, to be a judge of the said court on and from the 13th day of October 2025. Provided always that you shall, except in case of leave of absence duly granted to you, actually execute the office to which you are by this commission appointed. Given under the hand of Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, Companion of the Order of Australia, King's Counsel, Governor of the State of New South Wales and the Commonwealth of Australia, this first day of October 2025.
Judicial Register, do you have the judicial affirmation for Judge Johnson to sign?
Yes, Acting Chief Judge.
Thank you. Judge Johnson, would you please stand? Take the affirmation.
I, Paul Johnson, do solemnly, sincerely and declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors according to law. I, Paul Johnson, do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will well and truly serve our Sovereign King Charles III in the office of a Judge of the District Court of New South Wales, and I will do right to all manner of people after the laws and usages of the State of New South Wales, without fear or favour, affection or ill will.
Thank you. Just take a seat. I'll sign that. Judge Johnson, the judicial affirmations will now be placed in the court archives. Krisenthal.
Acting Chief Judge, I have the honour to announce that I have been appointed as a judge of this court. I present my commission.
Thank you. Just take a seat. Judicial Registrar, would you please read the commission?
Whereas by the District Court Act 1973 is enacted that the Governor may, by commission under the public seal of the state, appoint any qualified person as a judge of the District Court of New South Wales. Now I, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, AC Casey, the Governor aforesaid, in pursuance of the power and authority vested in me in that behalf, do, with the advice of the Executive Council of New South Wales, hereby appoint you, the said Peter Gerard Krisenthal, being a person qualified to be so appointed, to be a judge of the said court on and from the 13th day of October 2025. Provided always that you shall, except in case of leave of absence duly granted to you, actually execute the office to which you are by this commission appointed. Given under the hand of Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, Companion of the Order of Australia, King's Counsel, Governor of the State of New South Wales and the Commonwealth of Australia, this 17th day of September 2025.
Thank you, Mr Judicial Registrar. Do you have the affirmation for Judge Krisenthal to sign?
Yes, Acting Chief.
Thank you. Judge Krisenthal, if you stand and swear the allegiance.
I, Peter Krisenthal, do solemnly, sincerely declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors according to law. I, Peter Krisenthal, do solemnly, sincerely declare and affirm that I will well and truly serve our Sovereign King Charles III in the office of a Judge of the District Court of New South Wales, and I will do right to all manner of people, after the laws and usages of the State of New South Wales, without fear or favour, affection or ill will.
Thank you. Just take a seat and sign that.
Thank you.
Judge Krisenthal, the judicial affirmations will be placed in the court archives. Judge Johnson and Judge Krisenthal, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you both to the court. Together you bring the court decades of experience in the criminal law. On behalf of the Chief Judge, myself and the other judges, both those sitting today and those who are not able to be present, I warmly congratulate you and wish you both very success in your judicial careers. It has been an unexpected but personal privilege to preside over your swearing in, as both of you are former members of my old chambers. I now call upon the Attorney-General, Mr Michael Daly, to speak on behalf of the New South Wales Bar Association.
Thank you, Acting Chief Judge. May it please the Court. Can I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet this morning, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects and acknowledge any Aboriginal colleagues here in court today. Acting Chief Judge, making judicial appointments and attending these swearings in, as I've said before, is one of the most fulfilling parts of my job. It's not only an occasion of celebration and promise, but it's an opportunity for all of us in the face of the court to get a wonderful insight into the lives of the best and brightest in our legal sphere who join the bench, and to hear about the journeys they've undertaken to date, journeys of people who are tasked with making incredibly consequential decisions that affect not just of the lives of those before the court, but of the broader community. And today we're fortunate that not one, but two very accomplished lawyers and two very good people indeed are joining the bench of this esteemed court. Judge Johnson, can I congratulate you on behalf of the Bar and the people of New South Wales, and thank you for your life of service to date. I acknowledge and welcome your family and friends who are here, including your wife Eleanor, daughter Ellie and brother Mark. As a youngster, Your Honour did not have your sights set on the law. As a child, you initially wanted to become a movie star. Fortunately for all of us, dreams of stardom were not fulfilled. In fact, your biggest claim to fame in that sense was being babysat by David Bowie's mother when your family lived in England in the 70s. But you discovered, like many people in this room, that the law on occasion permits at times a little bit of acting ability. More than 3 decades of experience as a solicitor and then barrister have prepared you for your most significant role yet, the judge of this court. Your career has been marked by your commitment to ensuring particularly vulnerable defendants were afforded fair hearing, even if they didn't achieve the outcome they wanted at times. You first pursued legal studies in senior school and had the distinction of becoming the first person in your family to attend university. Initially, your choice was economics, but switched to economics law at ANU, and this is where you first met Eleanor, who was a year ahead of you in studies. She studied international business law while you focused on the criminal law. You decided at university that you wanted to be a legal aid lawyer and graduated in 1987 with honours, your thesis being on police powers of arrest. During a post-university gap year, you and Eleanor reunited in Paris under the Eiffel Tower and have been together ever since. You returned to Sydney, where you both completed your practical legal training at the College of Law before being admitted as a solicitor in 1989. You then began working as an associate to former New South Wales Supreme Court Justice Rex Smart before joining Legal Aid's Prisoners Legal Service. You jumped straight into the deep end there, cut your teeth, visiting prisons across the state, giving advice to inmates and representing them at justice hearings and before the parole board. On occasion, you'd appear at Long Bay Jail for justice hearings with the police prosecutor and magistrate and have 2 minutes to prepare. You became known for marathon conferences in cells, spending a great deal of time preparing and taking detailed instructions. You also worked at Legal Aid's Bondi Junction office and appeared in metropolitan and country children's and local courts as a duty solicitor. Eleanor remarks that you were so kind to those that some in society didn't want anything to do with. You made sure your clients got the best and fairest representation, notwithstanding the charges they were facing. You described your work at Legal Aid as hard and often confronting, but it grounded you in one of the central tenets of our legal system: fairness for those with the least power. You headed up Legal Aid's criminal division at Parramatta from the late 90s to the early 2000s. You managed staff, supervised junior solicitors, and continued your own practice, appearing in committals, sentence proceedings, fitness and special hearings. And during this time, you watched as many of your contemporaries, including some who started out later than you, were called to the bar. The final straw came when you returned from extended leave to learn that a good friend of yours, who's now also a judge, had sat the bar exam. So you followed suit and before long joined Samuel Griffith's chambers. Here you built a reputation as one with an eye for detail and for fearlessness and compassion in equal measure. Eleanor recalls that it didn't matter whether you were doing a legal aid matter or representing a private paying client. You would work until you were satisfied you were meticulously prepared to give your client every chance. A colleague from your time at Samuel Griffith's chambers described you as someone who really cared about your clients getting a fair go, that you were incredibly focused and believed that the devil was in the detail. You were known for being collegiate, working hard, and for winning difficult cases. You've never been a loud or presumptuous person, but in court acted as a fearless advocate for some of society's most disadvantaged. You've appeared in the Children's Court, local court, in the District, Supreme and Coroner's Courts, as well as in the Drug Court before ICAC and the New South Wales Parole Authority. You come to the bench acutely aware that the courtroom can be a very intimidating place for the uninitiated, and many don't always know what to expect. As a judge, we know you'll want everyone to leave your courtroom feeling like they've been given a fair shake, regardless of the outcome. Outside of work, you're an avid gardener, enjoying attending music gigs and art house movies with your family and cooking complicated dishes. You and Eleanor also have an extensive art collection. You're a tennis enthusiast and have been an Arsenal fan ever since your father took you to a game when you lived in England. That's okay, no one's perfect. Your friends and family are thrilled to watch you commence the next chapter of your career, and we all have no doubt that your decades working with society's most vulnerable defendants is an excellent grounding for the bench, and look forward to watching your career unfold. You have a strong grasp of the law, a deep understanding of disadvantage and an abiding commitment to fairness. On behalf of the New South Wales Bar, can I congratulate you again on your appointment and thank you for your continuing service. Judge Krisenthal, well, I also want to congratulate you on your incredibly well-deserved appointment today. Here to celebrate your swearing in are your wife Jackie, children Tom, Amy and Simon, their partners, and 6 grandchildren. Look too young to have 6 grandchildren, Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Your path to the bench has taken a less conventional route, but the court is the richer for it. You began your career in a completely different field, as a psychiatric nurse at the age of 17, which you described as an enlightening experience. One of 7 siblings, you left home in Newcastle 2 days after receiving your higher skill certificate to pursue a job in Parramatta. It was there that you met your wife Jackie, who was a nurse at the psychiatric hospital, and she was your senior. She jokes it was one of the only times in your life together you ever had to do what she asked. She always held the view that anyone who pursued psychiatric nursing was a very nurturing, giving person like you, and she found you easy to get along with. You were warm and had a good sense of humour. You worked at Parramatta Psychiatric Centre until 1986, when you began working as a probation and parole officer at Blacktown. You also worked as a court duty officer at Blacktown, conducting assessments which sparked an enduring interest in the law. With your wife's unhesitating support, you started a law degree at the University of New South Wales at the age of 30. In 1991, while juggling study and a young family, you began working at Legal Aid's Veterans Advocacy Service. You advocated for veterans in relation to their disability pensions before the Veterans Review Board and the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. Jackie notes that you've always been someone who stuck up for the underdog. That might explain why you continue to support the Parramatta Eels, Your Honour. You graduated in law in 1997 and spent a total of 18 years with legal aid, first as an advocate, then a duty lawyer at Burwood, and later as a senior criminal lawyer and solicitor in charge with Parramatta. The solicitor in charge of Burwood when you were there recalled how you came to his office with a very high reputation. He immediately knew it was well deserved because you were more than competent, hugely enthusiastic and hardworking with an infectious energy and enthusiasm. You have a keen legal mind and we're always testing out new ideas to run within the local court. You never knocked back work, and this meant that you'd end up with some of the most difficult matters and most difficult clients. It's never bothered you, but you like to remind your old boss some of the hospital passes he sent your way. You moved from being a duty lawyer to a criminal solicitor at Burwood. Those around you recalled then how you were the kind of solicitor that senior counsel wanted to be briefed by and that clients wanted to be represented by. You continued moving up the ranks to become a senior criminal lawyer and later solicitor in charge at Parramatta Legal Aid. In 2009 you were called to the bar and, like your fellow appointee today, went to Samuel Griffith Chambers. You kept a busy practice thanks to your excellence and reputation for hard work. In 2014 you were appointed as a public defender, returning to your hometown of Newcastle. Many that you had admired as barristers had been public defenders. The late Judge Zara, Justice Yahya and John Stratton SC, and walking in the footsteps of your legal heroes as a public defender was a great source of pride for you, as it should be. You were so proud to be appointed as a public defender and were convinced you'd reached the pinnacle of your legal career. To those around you, however, it was an acknowledgement of your breadth and experience as a criminal lawyer, advocacy skills and knowledge of the criminal law. In fact, at each stage of your legal career, you'd thought you'd reached the limits of what you could achieve. But you were wrong, Your Honour. You've proven yourself wrong time and time again, thankfully. A colleague who briefed you on several complex and difficult matters, easy ones like murder, sexual assault and drug matters, including the importation of $750 million of cocaine, describes you as one of the best advocates he's seen in 30 years. He first met you down in the cells at Newcastle where you were talking with a client that had just been sentenced. After you wished your client all the best, the other lawyer remarked that you must have secured a good result. You simply smiled and responded that the man had just been sentenced to 36 years non-parole. Ever since then, you wishing someone all the best has been taken with a grain of salt. Colleagues describe you as being laid back, able to have a laugh, and someone who's never lost touch with their working class roots. You're honest, a man of the world, and widely respected by your peers and those on the bench. Those who've worked with you, Your Honour, describe you as decisive and not one to prevaricate or sugarcoat anything. Your caseload has canvassed complex and pressing issues, particularly some that are relevant to today, including youth offending and the application of Dolly and Capax. You've greatly enjoyed advocacy work and doing best for people that you represent, but now you're looking forward to a new challenge of adjudicating the arguments rather than prosecuting them. And we all look forward to watching the next stage of your career on the bench unfold. So on behalf of the bar and the people of New South Wales, can I thank you for saying yes and for continuing what has been to date a sterling life of service. Thank you, Acting Chief Judge.
Thank you, Mr Attorney. I now invite Councillor Ms Alexia Yazdani to speak on behalf of the Law Society of New South Wales.
May it please the Court. I too acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which this court stands, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I acknowledge and extend my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are with us today. I also acknowledge your families who are here today to witness this momentous occasion. To echo the sentiments of the Honourable Attorney General, I know many solicitors in New South Wales are celebrating these appointments. two honourable judges whose sharp understanding of the criminal law is coupled with compassion and common sense. I begin with Your Honour, Judge Johnson. Your Honour's dedication to practice came close to getting in the way of this appointment, in a small sense. Recently, Your Honour was on the phone to an instructing solicitor about a matter. A second call came through, and Your Honour asked if you could see who it was, saying you'd be right back. A voice asked, "Is that Paul Johnson? Michael Daly, Attorney General here. Paul, I just want to invite you to become the next District Court Judge of New South Wales." In shock, Your Honour replied, "Look, I'm actually on another call. Can I ring you back?"
True story.
Graciously, I am told, the Honourable Attorney General said, "Yes, of course, whenever you have time." At morning tea, you might be able to corroborate that hearsay, Mr. Attorney General. True to your word, Your Honour was right back with that solicitor. Next came some very wise counsel from Your Honour's partner, and half an hour later, Your Honour called back, accepting. Then, everything that has led to this moment came rushing in. Your Honour was, in your own words, flabbergasted by being appointed. To those who know you, that reaction was not surprising. Solicitors and barristers noted a deep-seated humility throughout your 13 years as a solicitor and 23 years at the bar. Colleagues record conferences where Your Honour would so fully immerse yourself in acting out the facts, often from a first-person perspective, that promised lift home would quietly vanish as the night wore on. After years of legal service, Your Honour built a well-respected practice at Samuel Griffith Chambers, a practice founded on your legal aid work as a solicitor, serving those most in need of support. Over time, your practice came to span the full breadth of criminal law at the private bar, including murder trials. Your Honour's practice at the bar took you across the country from Perth to Adelaide to Melbourne and Sydney. It was unceasing. When speaking with our team about this practice across hundreds of kilometres and many years, one instructing solicitor recalled the moment he heard of your appointment. He was sitting in his car when it hit him, and he cried. He was both overjoyed for Your Honour and deeply sad. He was losing his best criminal barrister, indeed a friend to the bench. But above all, he felt joy. Joy at the public recognition of what he had known for many years. Colleagues recalled a barrister who was admirable as a master of not just the law, but also of the facts. So much so that one colleague joked it might be something that was diagnosable, though it always led to exceptional work. And without exaggeration, people's lives were changed because of it. Take, for example, a case in which Your Honour acted for the Crown, which concerned sexsomnia, a rare form of sexual behaviour which happens while in non-rapid eye movement sleep. These are scientifically, factually, legally, and dare I say, emotionally complex matters. However, the barrister on the other side recalled a disclosure about sleep positions, something many would have missed. Your Honour's extensive and conscientious preparation meant you realised that this changed the course of the entire matter, and in that one instance, the lives of those involved. She also recalled that you were not particularly thrilled about her subsequent application for costs, although such is the nature of our work, and you remain firm friends to this day. Having been born on a military rocket range and growing up with the rough and tumble of your brothers while moving across Australia and England for your father's army work, Your Honour brings a rare ability to relate to all people. Solicitors described a person who could connect with clients from all walks of life and with remarkable ease, an excellent quality for the bench. They felt this emotional intelligence stemmed, in part, from Your Honour's ability to recognise the human side in a client, a witness, or anyone before the court. A solicitor also recalled having briefed many barristers throughout the years and only encountering positive views of Your Honour. That view stood, despite one moment on the way to dinner one evening during a 3-week trial when you both realised your books weren't in your hire car. That was because, quite by accident and without intent or negligence, you had possibly undertaken parts of what the common law calls conversion of a different hire car to the one you initially had on the lot. This solicitor recalled asking, legally, do we have an obligation to return the hire car, even though we'll be back in an hour? And at that point, he noted he'd need a Section 128 certificate before finishing that story, though I can say it all worked out fine. As some noted, Your Honour was not born with a silver spoon in your mouth, but with something far better, a devastatingly good mind and ability to work. You have been described as incredibly fair and a believer in the criminal justice system, borne out by your legal practice in one of the most challenging areas of the law. From what one friend recalled as an early emo fellow from the College of Law, with black Blundstones, black jeans and a black shirt, and the same brilliant head of hair that many were quietly taken by, to the obsessive gardener who loves his partner Eleanor and daughter Ellie more than anything else. This is a fine moment. I'm privileged to be able to confidently say that from solicitors through to judges, the unanimous view is that Your Honour will make a fine judge. On behalf of the solicitors of New South Wales, congratulations, Judge Johnson. I turn now to Your Honour, Judge Krisenthal. Both of Your Honours bring to this bench an exceptional breadth of criminal law knowledge that has been practised, refined and mastered in our courtrooms. For Your Honour, or Harbour Master, I'll explain that later. This appointment marks the next step in a career fundamentally dedicated to serving vulnerable people within our justice system. Founded on a view that public legal aid is not for the underfunded fringes, but should be amongst the very best legal advice in the state, Your Honour has demonstrated a life of action for those who need support. However, if one were to have written this speech solely from Your Honour's view, I suspect it would mainly consist of thanks of others and self-deprecating jokes. Perhaps it would also include a few comments from a friend pointing out the tragic support Your Honour has endured for a wayward rugby league side. Something that may well have prepared you for any disappointments in legal practice. Thankfully, we have the view of your family and many solicitors too, who have painted a picture of a person with a deep conviction, especially about the role of fairness in society. Of a person who came to the law in his mid-30s, with a grounding as a psychiatric nurse and work in probation and parole services, as it was then known. A person who worked very hard, with 3 young children, to become a solicitor in criminal law, then a barrister at the private bar, a public defender, and now a judge. We know that, much like Judge Johnson, few of the nearly 2,500 barristers in New South Wales appear solely in the criminal law and the legally aided matters that make up so much of this work. Even fewer become public defenders. So how, one might ask, does someone with that kind of background become a boat watcher? Solicitors, friends and family, they all offered views on what went wrong. Lightheartedness aside, for Your Honour, the sheer enjoyment of seeing the vast shipping lanes, the massive cargo ships, the magical power of the tugs, and donning a specific hat, which may or may not be nautical in nature, has offered a calming alternative to the work of law. Given the steady diet of murder trials that has dominated so much of your practice, this is welcome relief. Many here will understand the pressure found deep in cases whose facts make us question what it means to be human or humane. Your Honour has not been in short supply of life-changing experiences through the law. Your Honour also shares a quality with Judge Johnson that many solicitors remarked upon: the ability to sit in a cell and talk with someone who is clearly struggling, someone from a completely different background, and yet connect, and then step straight into a Supreme Court trial. Various people noted that beneath it all exists a compassion few people possess. To take but one example, when an instructing solicitor was diagnosed with cancer, Your Honour called every night that she was in hospital, every single night, simply to check in, to see how she was doing. From your organisational abilities to being legally impressive in court while remaining relatable to clients and juries alike, instructing solicitors recalled a person with unmitigated dedication to the law. One who could tell the story of a case with balance and a natural ease that held the attention of everyone in the courtroom. For the legal community of Newcastle, this has been a guiding light. Solicitors have spoken of Your Honour's generosity with both time and knowledge. One recalled how she could call you about a case that you had absolutely nothing to do with, simply to learn, without a bill. Your Honour has always been available and willing to help many practitioners, and I know that the legal fraternity in Newcastle, well represented here and online, are feeling the loss locally, whilst knowing that this is the right move. I could continue for a long time, but given the extent of all that has been said, I'll end with noting that Your Honour's daughter knows that you care deeply, that while you didn't grow up in a privileged household, you've helped create a loving family and worked hard every step of the way. She described your passion for making a difference to our society as unquestionable. And she learned this firsthand as a child, when she questioned whether it was a good use of taxpayer money to have jury trials. What followed, she recalled, was a 2-hour monologue on why they were very, very important. When asked if Your Honour convinced her, she replied, "Look, he convinced me to stop arguing the point," which is something he's definitely very good at. Nevertheless, all 3 of your children, she reliably informed me, are ethically minded people. Clearly, something worked. In some of the conversations for this speech, it was raised that there are 2 types of truth in law, generally speaking, that good lawyers can use: factual truth, on which the law depends, and emotional truth, on which we rely for our reasoning. But the best lawyers, and this is something we've seen in both of Your Honours, find a way to hold both at once. They create a 3rd kind of truth, the combination of legal and emotional truth in practice. And so, on behalf of the 43,000 solicitors of New South Wales, it is a privilege to congratulate Your Honours on being appointed to the District Court of New South Wales. As the court pleases.
Thank you, Ms Yazdani. I'll now invite Judge Johnson to speak.
Thank you, Acting Chief Judge Hanley. It is a happy coincidence that Your Honour gave me your barrister's wig when you were appointed to the District Court after I had just managed to lose my own. So it is kismet, perhaps, that Chief Judge Huggett is currently on leave and you're able to swear me in today, although this time you haven't had to give me your wig. Thank you to Chief Judge Huggett, who I understand is watching remotely from more comfortable and relaxing surroundings somewhere in Bali. I appreciate your support of me. Thank you, Mr Attorney General and Ms Yazdani, on behalf of the Law Society, for your kind words. Thank you to the judges and justices who have come along today. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which this court sits, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I have been truly, it's happening right now, truly overwhelmed by the number of well wishes and congratulations I have received since news of my appointment, not only from friends, but other barristers, solicitors, Crown prosecutors and judicial officers. It has been a humbling experience to receive so much positive support from so many people in the legal profession, and I hope I live up to everyone's expectations of me. I want to honour my wonderful mum and dad, Lois and Brian, who sadly didn't live to see this day. I know how very proud of me they would have been. My parents came from modest backgrounds, but provided me and my brothers with all the love and support one could ever ask from parents. They were both only children, and due to Dad's job in the army, we moved around a lot until I was aged about 11 years old, and then we finally settled in Canberra. So we were a close family unit growing up. Mum and Dad were honest, hard-working people, qualities I like to think I have inherited from them. I want to thank my brother Mark and his wife Trish for being here today. Mark is the most decent person I've known my whole life, and often leaves me feeling inadequate by comparison. He did so much for our dad on a daily basis in Canberra for 20 odd years after Mum passed away in 1995, whilst also working full time and then having his own family. He and Trish not only raised two boys of their own, Ewan and Kieran, now fine young men, but also then raised a third boy, Trent, after the premature death of Trent's mother, who was a very close friend of theirs and who has become, to all intents, their third son. They have both been a great example to me. Over the last week, since I received a very unexpected phone call from the Attorney General, I have been thinking about my life and pondering how I got to where I am sitting here today. As children of an army officer, my brothers and I learned from a young age about discipline and the adage, actions have consequences, particularly the part about the consequences. Being the youngest of three boisterous and careless boys, there were certainly occasions when I felt I had been wrongly charged by my dad as a principal in the first degree for the latest broken chair or window or whatever was collateral damage during our youthful exploits and fights. Sometimes, to my mind at least, my liability was arguably at most as a principal in the second degree, or as an accessory before or after the fact, or perhaps even no liability whatsoever. If only I had known about dolly ink packs before I turned 14, although I doubt that would have saved me. However, Dad normally didn't see these subtle but important distinctions of liability. Opportunities to make oral submissions were minimal, if at all, and inevitably a verdict of guilty would swiftly be entered by my dad, who then engaged in what I would later learn lawyers quaintly call lawful correction. Looking back, I probably deserved everything I got, but I have wondered if it laid the seed of a desire to become a criminal lawyer. I was the grateful beneficiary of the days of free tertiary education and somehow got into law school at the ANU, although not directly, as my partner Eleanor did, which she's made sure I've never forgotten. I made some lifelong friends at law school, in particular Ernie and Lisa, who later married, and John, and then later John's wife Carla became part of our decades-long catch-ups. I cherish their friendships, even if I suspect they have always privately wondered to themselves why on earth did Paul want to represent criminals, as they became successful corporate lawyers and are all now comfortably retired. I would like to thank some other dear friends who have been a continuing presence in my life for decades and who have taken time to be here today, including but not limited to Laura, Heidi, Pete, Justin, Kath and Dave, and others, friends watching online, Michael, Paddy and Peter, and my father-in-law Brian. Excuse me. My first and ultimately only employment as a solicitor began when I joined the Legal Aid Commission in 1990, where I initially worked in the Prisoners' Legal Service. It was there that I made my first lawyer friend, Hamid Danji, now Justice Danji, who had also recently started the Prisoners Legal Service. Whilst the similarities in our careers perhaps ended there, Hammett has remained a loyal friend ever since, and I admire him for his intelligence and good nature, and I thank him for coming today. Another person who joined Prisoners Legal Service soon after me, who I want to acknowledge, is the late Jack Graham. Jack was a true libertarian and staunch believer in civil liberties, who helped me appreciate that not everyone is dealt a good hand in the game of life. And although a sworn atheist, that the saying, "There but for the grace of God go I," was worth remembering. His principles live on in his daughter Harriet Graham, now Her Honour Graham of the Coroner's Court, and I want to thank Harriet and her partner Jane for their decades of friendship. I worked with many other wonderful and talented people at Legal Aid, but there is one more I'd like to especially mention, who is still there, although I'm not entirely sure whether he's here today, but within a year of my starting, another solicitor arrived, also named Paul Johnson. Not only did we have the same build and hair colour, although not anymore, or at least I don't, we both had the same middle initial A, and at the beginning we also both drove Holden Kingswood station wagons. I confessed initially to a small degree of resentment at his arrival, although we soon became good friends and remain so to this day. I later came to understand how precious I'd initially been about my name and the name thing, when one day I appeared for a client named Paul Johnson at Wollongong Local Court in front of a magistrate also named Paul Johnson. In any event, due to the confusion at work, the two Paul Johnsons created, another colleague and dear friend from Legal Aid, Meredith Phelps, gave us the nicknames as a point of distinction, for which I think I certainly got the better deal. The other Paul's nickname was Scary, whilst I was given the highly flattering, if erroneous, nickname of Handsome. For better or worse, his nickname has stuck ever since, whilst unsurprisingly, mine hasn't. Save for a few misguided old friends. I don't know what Paul's nickname did for his self-esteem, but it certainly helped mine to be regularly addressed as Handsome whilst working at Legal Aid. I spent 13 busy and happy years at Legal Aid, but I do wonder if I would ever have left to go to the bar but for the other Paul Johnson's continuing presence. So I want to thank you, Paul, both for the small part you played in Meredith giving me such a complimentary nickname and for helping me finally decide to leave Legal Aid. I spent the next 22 years as a barrister at Samuel Griffith Chambers, starting in 2003. They have been the most satisfying years of my career, and I shall miss being a barrister and a member of Chambers. Given my appointment to the District Court is the third to have come from our chambers this year alone, it speaks to the strength and ability of our floor members. I have many friends and work colleagues there, and whilst not wanting to overlook anyone from the floor, I would like to give a special mention to my good mates Luke Brash, Ken Buckman, Joe Gallagher, Louise Jardim, Michael Picken and Adam Williams, whose regular interactions and good humour I will miss. I have had many fine instructing solicitors over the years, with only a few occasions where instructing seemed to have a different meaning to my own understanding of the word. However, there are some solicitors who I wish to give special mention to and thank. First is the inimitable Charles Abbott, whose rapier wit not only kept me in good humour, regardless of the nature or difficulty of the case we were doing, but also ensured I never got above myself. I will miss sitting at the bar table with him, trying to keep a straight face after he's passed me another amusing note. We share a love of old Hollywood, and I half expect a text from him later on today likening this moment to a cloying acceptance speech by an unexpected Oscar winner. I would like to give special thanks to Omar Juanet, who was the most generous and kind solicitor I've ever known in my career. Every matter we have done together has been such a collegiate and enjoyable experience. I will be forever grateful not only for the work he gave me, but also his great company and judgment. I shall miss working with him, as well as with his co-workers Daniel Crodolfa and Maddison Hutchin. I would also like to give special thanks to Kathy Hunter, who I first met at Legal Aid more than 30 years ago and who has consistently briefed me at the bar. I have the utmost respect for Kathy, for her professionalism and for her unflappable manner. There are many other solicitors I've worked with whom I should thank, but I would like to just acknowledge in particular Sean Titmarsh, Tracy Randall, Graham Lamond and Matthew Lorcan. Finally, there are the two most important people I want to thank, my daughter and my partner. They're both named Eleanor, but in case you think this was due to maternal ego, although I could say more, our daughter Ellie is in fact the fifth successive generation of Eleanors on her mother's side. My daughter Ellie makes me so proud to be her dad and has given me a greater sense of purpose since she was born in 2005. She's grown into a lovely and engaging young woman, and such is her amiable and sweet nature that without her having to say a word, she makes me realise when I'm being small-minded or unnecessarily fractious. Ellie has inherited my diligence and sense of responsibility and will always inspire me to be a better person. Lastly, but certainly not least, I want to thank my partner Eleanor Thornton, who I first met in 1983 at the ANU. Eleanor, to those who know her, is a woman of indomitable spirit. She's been a stalwart at Legal Aid for 3 decades, where she works as a duty solicitor and is admired for her affability and efficiency by colleagues and magistrates. Erudite, funny and perceptive, Eleanor has been a constant in my life for more than 40 years, and I cannot imagine what life would have been like without her. She reminds me of what matters in life and what doesn't. She puts up with my shortcomings, other than when I beat her at Scrabble. Whilst I might be the more industrious domestically, Eleanor more than makes up for it by maintaining a huge number of friendships that have made for such a wonderful and fulsome life together. So, in closing, thank you to Mr. Attorney General and to the Chief Judge for this privilege. I am very excited to be given the opportunity to serve the people of New South Wales, and I will always do so to the best of my ability. Thank you.
I now invite Judge Krisenthal to speak.
Thank you, Acting Chief Judge. I too acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Mr. Attorney, Acting Chief Judge, judges of the Supreme Court, judges of this court, members of the legal profession, family and friends, thank you for being here today. I'm aware that some of you travelled quite lengthy distances and others are online. I'm truly grateful that everyone has been able to attend. Also, a very big thanks to you, Mr. Attorney, and Ms. Yazdani. You have both strictly observed the tradition of these occasions by only saying positive things about me, despite some of the quality of your informants, such as Mr. Ramsland and Judge McGrath. You both showed great skill in making my life sound far more interesting than it ever seemed to me, but at the same time neatly sidestepping my numerous flaws and shortcomings, and I thank you both for that. I'm very fortunate that I've had a few different careers over my life, and along the way I've gained friends at every stage of the journey, as well as whatever skills I've had. And happily there are people here today from every distinct stage of my life, and I appreciate the part that they've played, that they've contributed to my life. But I'll only mention a few. Early on, as you've heard, I was a psychiatric nurse and I met my wife Jackie whilst there. Mr. Attorney, I'm glad you didn't fall into the trap of making the joke that I met my wife at a psychiatric institution. And that's the first laugh I've got from that joke in the last 40 years. It's just normally met with a disdainful eye roll and then moving on. But I'll have more to say about Jackie a bit later on. In the mid-1980s, I worked as a probation and parole officer. It was there that I met Chris Kinnar and Brett Kersley. Neither Chris nor Brett work anymore, which is fitting because, from my memory, they didn't do any work at Blacktown Probation. It always seemed to be me carrying the can. But what we did form there was a friendship that continues strongly until today, and it's largely based on sport, laughter and complete and utter nonsense. It's been a lot of fun and I've appreciated their friendship. I then moved to Veterans Advocacy, which you've heard was a branch of legal aid seeking seeking pensions for war veterans. I met Ivan Batoya there, and like myself, Ivan was studying law part-time. We both finished law at about the same time, and Ivan put a lot of work into seeking a submission seeking exemption from having to participate in the College of Law program, which was of 3 months duration and cost a fortune. I did absolutely nothing with that submission apart from put my signature on it, and Ivan was successful in gaining us both an exemption. Thanks, Ivan. We continued to work together after we qualified and continued our friendship till today. After I was admitted, you've heard that I was made a duty lawyer at Burwood Legal Aid, and my solicitor in charge was Brian Sandland, and Brian, I'm very pleased, is here today. He was very important to my development as he taught me how to be a real lawyer, not just legal principles and practice, but also importantly how to relate to clients. He had a great sense for people, and he was tireless in advancing his clients' cases, and I learned a great deal from him. And additionally, he was extremely supportive of me as I moved around and up the legal organisation. There was one exception to Brian's support, however, when he found out that I, as a lawyer with 6 months' experience, was serving Section 78B Judiciary Act notices on all of the Attorney Generals of the country, advising that I was raising a constitutional issue in the Burwood Local Court, defending a breach of AVO and inviting them to intervene in the proceedings. Brian's support was a bit iffy at that stage, and he quickly sought counsel's opinion. Unfortunately, counsel's opinion was much more conservative than mine as to the prospects of success at that point. And sadly I had to drop that killer point, which, as far as I'm aware, hasn't been argued properly in the 26 years since, and I will guarantee you it's got legs. I then moved to the indictable section of legal aid and began instructing counsel, and I was then exposed to the public defender's chambers. I was truly like a kid in a legal candy store. Surnames only: Zara, Stratton, Hazler, Flannery, Button, Young, Yehia, Webb, Rigg. For me, these people were absolute legal giants, and I got to work with them. I learned a lot off them, and I'm very grateful to them for their time and patience with me. I did do a lot of work with Peter Zara. He was hugely influential in my life, and I'm sorry he's not here for me to say that to him. He showed me about being a barrister and all the hard work and commitment that it took. Not only was he a tireless worker, but he was such a genuine person and was genuinely interested in you as a person and supportive of what you wanted to do. He was a big reason that I made the decision to go to the bar. Ex-Justice Button, who is also here today, thankfully, also played a part in that decision, albeit not with the same gentleness nor finesse that Peter Zara did. Richard Button's contribution was, "Krisenthal, will you stop bloody bleating about it and just go and do it?" Not long afterwards, I took the plunge. I really enjoyed my time at Legal Aid, and it was very difficult for me to leave, as there were and are many fine lawyers working there, mostly all together for the greater good. As you've heard, I've went to Samuel Griffith's chambers like Judge Johnson. I loved being a member of that floor, and especially loved the collegiate environment where everyone was available to offer assistance whenever required. I was there with the acting Chief Judge, Peter McGrath, Pauline David, Tom Jones, and of course now Judge Johnson, who are all judges of this court. I read with Peter McGrath of Senior Counsel and Deputy State Coroner Dave O'Neill. Little did Peter McGrath know in 2009, when he agreed to be my tutor for a year, that it was in actuality a lifelong commitment. My readership year is obviously well over now, But in 2025, I'm still seeking his wise or otherwise counsel, and I have no doubt that that will continue, given that he's a far more senior judge than I, and he will unquestionably continue to answer my inane questions. In 2014, I was appointed as a public defender, and I mentioned earlier how I viewed the public defenders. It was a tremendous honour for me to be appointed as one. Judge Craig Smith tells a story that you never forget, the feeling of being told that you're about to be appointed as a defender, and that was truly the case for me. It is a floor of exceptional barristers, very well supported by a highly efficient support staff. During my time, the floor was led tremendously well by Mark Irace of Senior Counsel, Belinda Rigg of Senior Counsel, and now Richard Wilson of Senior Counsel. I made many friends whilst at the public defenders, and I look forward to those friendships continuing. I will really miss being a public defender. That appointment as a defender was in Newcastle. I initially went to Newcastle reluctantly, as it wasn't the best place in the world in the 1970s when I grew up there. I very quickly learnt that it's completely different now and a vibrant city. And I've greatly enjoyed the last 11 years living and working there. And I've taken great pleasure in the self-proclaimed title that I now have of being the Harbour Master. It's only the allure of the grandchildren and my wife's, let's call them suggestions, often made, that has been able to drag me out of Newcastle from the beginning of next year. Additionally, working in the courts is different in Newcastle, and because it's smaller and somewhat of a country feel, there's a sense of collegiality about it in comparison with Sydney. I've been instructed by tremendous lawyers over my time from Legal Aid, the Aboriginal Legal Service and the private profession. Robin Fraser now leads the Legal Aid team, and she has a real skill in being able to ferret out the strangest of clients with the weirdest of instructions to brief me with. Additionally, Trish Brennan seems to have a never-ending stream of naughty young children requiring representation. From the private profession, I've worked closely with Christy Wade, recently retired John Anthony and Mark Ramsland, as well as a host of others. To all the solicitors that have briefed me, I thank them for their commitment to the client, for laughing at my jokes, and for tolerating my idiosyncrasies during the more stressful times that we spend together. And it's been pointed out to me that said idiosyncrasies might be more manifest when I'm under stress. I also wish to acknowledge the many crowns that I've worked with over the years. It's an adversarial system, one which I've very willingly engaged in. And although there are the occasional flare-ups, I think in the main we enjoyed a positive relationship overall. And I specifically note Lee Carr of Senior Counsel, Brendan Queenan, Liam Shaw, Carl Young and Keith Alder, as well as the myriad of others from the DPP that I've been against. I can't let this occasion pass without making mention of Judge Roy Ellis, who's seated to my left. I've been appearing before him for the last 23 years. Doesn't matter where I move to, he seems to pop up. My first thought when, Mr. Attorney, you rang me to offer me this position was finally that I'd be freed from the ridicule and harassment that I've had to endure at his hands over that time. Then I realised that if I sit in Newcastle as a judge, he'll be the one allocating my work, so unfortunately it's likely to continue. But today is a special day, not only because this is the first time in 23 years that His Honour Judge Ellis doesn't have the last say. Today, Judge, I have a speaking role and you don't. I'll just bask in that glory today.
Just today.
On a serious note, in terms of learning how to conduct yourself as a judge, I would be hard-pressed to find a better example. Lame jokes, usually at my expense, aside, the fairness and respect that you give to all participants is a great example for me going forward. We've truly been spoiled in Newcastle with judges such as yourself, Judge Gardelman and Judge McGrath, and a variety of others, providing an environment where we can all do a stressful job in a friendly and somewhat relaxed environment. I hope I'm able to replicate a similar environment in my court. I also acknowledge and thank the reasonably large group of friends that I debrief with on the phone on most days. We generally sort out the problems of the world and rarely talk about the law. You know who you are, so I won't name you, but you've helped me keep me sane, or saner, over the years. And also a shout out to Steve Rayner, a very long time friend of mine who's here today. Although he's a Bulldogs supporter, he is a decent fellow, and I appreciate his attendance. I now turn to my family, who I'm pleased to say are here today. My younger sister Megan is an important part of my life and is a genuinely selfless person. Since childhood, however, she has developed a tremendous skill in being able to annoy me. Despite this, I'm very grateful she's part of my life and that she continues to pester me. But thanks for coming here today, Megan. Whatever I've done in my life, the thing that brings me the most pride is my children. I love being a parent and watching my family develop and expand. I'm far from the perfect parent. However, as has been pointed out, our three children, Amy, Tom and Simon, have all turned out to be wonderful, caring and giving human beings. I'm so proud of each of them. They've had to suffer through my legal career and consequently avoided the law. And can I just interrupt myself there and ask them to delete all of those rants that I had over the years at dinner time about what idiot judges and magistrates are. I now have an understanding of the difficult decisions that they had to make. But they have avoided the law. Amy's a high school teacher, Tom a tiler, and Simon a carpenter, project manager, and all are very successful in what they do. And all three have partnered up and now have children. Their partners, Andrew, Elise and Emma, are also wonderful additions to our family, and to see those three couples raising their children brings both myself and Jackie enormous joy. I must say, my children all make far better parents than I ever was. We now have 6 children who are here today. Lucas, Noah, Mia, Otis, and I think Darcy and Madeline have gone out to the naughty corner. They've already brought and continue to bring so much happiness to our life, and I'm extremely proud of all the members of my family. And all the grandchildren get a lollipop after this. A good advocate knows that you save your strongest point for last. My strongest point is unquestionably my wife, Jackie, who will likely be embarrassed that I even mention her today. We met when I was ridiculously young, still in my teens, and, can I say, still entirely impressionable and no match for your wily ways. But we've been together ever since. We married when I was 21, just before I was 30, and we had 3 children under 6, a mortgage and both working. It was then that I decided, completely selfishly, to go to university to do a law degree. I don't ever remember thinking that it was selfish, but that in itself probably epitomises how selfish it was. But every step of the way, it's been done with Jackie's full support and encouragement. Never once did she complain about the time I devoted to my studies, nor the impact that it had inevitably on our family life. That support and encouragement has continued throughout our relationship. What job I applied for, going to the bar, applying for the public defenders, and even moving to Newcastle. There's never been a complaint if I had to work at nights or on weekends. I did become a little concerned at one stage when I told her that I had to go away for 4 to 6 weeks. She very calmly told me it wouldn't bother her if the estimate blew out. Because she'd see me when I got back. As I said, we were married when I was, by today's standards, ridiculously young. I had no idea. She had a little bit more idea, but not a lot. We've grown up together over the years, and I'm proud to be able to say that. I'm certainly a much different person than I was all those years ago. I can say without any doubt that any accolades that come my way today are equally shared by you, as without your love, support and encouragement, I wouldn't be in this position today. Thank you sounds so inadequate given what you've given me, but I say it anyway. Mr. Attorney, Chief Judge, I'm in no doubt as to the significant and important responsibility that's been placed with me by my appointment to this court. I can assure all persons present that I will do my very best to discharge these responsibilities as best as I possibly can. Thank you.
The court will now adjourn and all are invited to morning tea. Thank you.
First one out of the way now. Fantastic. Great. Seriously good. It's good material.
I was with Phil Ruddock Saturday night at a function, and I said to him that I'm doing a swearing in, and he goes, "Oh, do you want to be an Attorney General?" Like, no, I'm just doing the swearing. Yeah, no.
Money in politics.
Also, we're doing the Armenian opening of law term